Oily skin, ashiness, skin sensitivity, product stinging, unrelenting breakouts. What do all these have in common?
They're all signs that your barrier is compromised.
That's right. And so today we are going to give you three things: the main causes of barrier damage in black and brown skin, and some may surprise you, the exact ingredients that need to be in your repair routine, and a clear timeline for when you can bring your favorite products back without undoing everything.
This episode might save you some money.
Because before you buy another serum, another treatment, another miracle product someone held into a camera and said, "Run, don't walk," you may need to fix this first. I am Alex.
I am Sam. Welcome to Black Skin Science, where we talk about evidence-based skincare from a formulation science perspective and dermatology for black and brown skin.
But before we start, please do us a huge favor. If you are finding these episodes useful, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and share the episode. It's a free way to support the show. All right, all things barrier repair on black and brown skin. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
So, before the three things, we need to spend 60 seconds on what the barrier actually is. Because I think once you understand it, everything else clicks immediately.
60 seconds. Go.
Your skin has layers. The outermost one, the part that faces the world every single day, is called the stratum corneum. Dead skin cells held together by a lipid matrix, ceramides, cholesterol, free fatty acids. That matrix is the barrier, and it has two jobs. Keep moisture inside your skin, keep irritants, bacteria, pollution, everything coming at it daily out. When it is working, your skin holds water, products absorb properly. It can defend itself. When it is not working, water escapes faster than your skin can replace it. Irritants reach layers they were never supposed to reach. And your skin goes into this low-grade emergency state, trying to compensate for everything it is losing. And here's the part that matters specifically for everyone listening. Barrier damage on darker skin does not look the way the textbooks describe it. The redness, the visible inflammation, the tight, shiny patches, that's for lighter skin types. On darker skin, it comes out as ashiness, a gray, dull, uneven appearance. Products that suddenly stopped working, a tone that looks off no matter what brightening serum you try. And the reason most people never fix it is because they treat it as a hydration problem. They buy a richer moisturizer, they add hyaluronic acid, they do a hydrating mask. And none of it holds, because you cannot hydrate your way out of a structural problem. Water content and barrier integrity are not the same thing.
Right. And there's one more piece to this before we get into the three things. Because our melanocytes, the pigment-producing cells, are more reactive to inflammation, barrier damage doesn't just mean sensitivity for us. It means dark marks. Every time the barrier is disrupted and inflammation follows, your skin gets the signal to produce more pigment. So if your dark spots keep coming back no matter what treatment you use, the problem might not be your treatment. It might be the barrier disruption that keeps triggering the production cycle in the first place.
Which is exactly why this sits where it does in the series. Before we go deeper into treatments, before acne, before anything else, the foundation has to be intact. None of it works without that. So, three things.
The first thing is the one nobody wants to hear. Strip it back. Before you can fix the barrier, you need to stop actively breaking it. For the next 7 days, you're stripping the routine back to 3 steps. Gentle cleanser in the morning, barrier moisturizer, sunscreen. At night, gentle cleanser, barrier moisturizer. That's it. No acids, no retinoid, no exfoliants, no experimenting with anything new. If your skin is very irritated, you can skip the morning cleanser entirely and just rinse with lukewarm water. The goal for those 7 days is one thing: reduce the inflammation and give the barrier the stability it needs to start repairing itself. And I know someone is already thinking, but what about my dark spots? I can't just stop everything for a week. But here's the thing. If your barrier is compromised, every time you apply a treatment active on top of it, your skin isn't reading it as a treatment. It reads it the same way it reads an irritant. The barrier doesn't distinguish between a retinoid you spent $40 on and something that shouldn't be on your face. When the foundation is open, everything becomes a potential aggressor. You're not going backwards by stopping, you're stopping the thing that's continuously resetting the clock on repair.
Yeah, and the second thing is identifying what broke it in the first place, because the reset only holds if the trigger is gone. And this is where most people skip a step. They do the basics for a week, their skin calms, they go straight back to everything they were doing before, and within 2 weeks, they're exactly where they started.
So, let us go through the most common causes. And I want to be real here because some of these are things the industry actively sells you. The biggest one is the cleanser, a high pH cleanser, and most traditional soaps sit at around 9 or 10, disrupts the acid mantle. Your acid mantle sits at around 4.5 to 5.5. When you wash with something that is too alkaline, you are dissolving part of the barrier system every single time. And the worst part is that the feeling most people associate with clean, that squeaky tight sensation right after washing, that is the barrier being stripped, not the skin being clean. That is the signal you went too far.
And to add to that quickly, hot water.
Yes.
People underestimate this completely. Very hot water strips lipids from the skin surface and increases water loss dramatically. Combined with a harsh cleanser, it compounds the disruption significantly. Lukewarm is the target, not cold, not hot, lukewarm.
Next, overexfoliation. And I did not just mean a weekly scrub, I mean the slow accumulation of exfoliating acids, exfoliating toners, retinoids, vitamin C, all running simultaneously. Social media built a culture around 15-step routines. Someone with ring light lighting and flawless skin holds up a new product every week and says this changed everything. We run, we buy it, we stack it on top of the 8 things already in the routine, and the skin handles it, or seems to, until one day it just stops. Everything stings. Products that worked for 2 years suddenly feel like they are burning. That was not random. That was accumulation. The system hit its limit.
And then there's fragrance. This is one of the most consistent causes of contact dermatitis, and it is in everything. Cleansers, toners, moisturizers, products that have no functional reason to have a scent. And for our skin, that low-grade irritation from fragrance is a continuous pigmentation trigger. Every time it causes a reaction, however subtle, the signal to produce more pigment goes out. And then there's the layering problem. Too many actives introduced too fast, no buffer between them, a retinoid and a glycolic acid on the same night, a vitamin C followed immediately by a niacinamide without allowing absorption. Combinations that look fine on paper, but on a barrier that's already compromised become compounding disruptions. So the audit question is, which of these am I doing? The cleanser, the hot water, the fragrance, the overcrowded routine. Identify it. Eliminate it. Then, and only then, does the rebuild actually hold.
So bottom line here is stripping it all back and simplifying your routine, right? So in this third section, we're getting into how you build back a routine that will incorporate all the great ingredients that will benefit your barrier and tackle any other skin issue you may have on a timeline that preserves the barrier repair you're doing.
Yes, when building back up, ingredients matter, but habits matter just as much. Let me start with the ingredients because I want to be specific. The barrier is built from 3 lipids, ceramides, cholesterol, and free fatty acids. When it is damaged, those levels drop. You are literally losing the structural material. A good barrier repair moisturizer replenishes all 3, and here's the thing I want people to remember when they're reading labels. The combination matters more than any single ingredient. A product with ceramides but no cholesterol, no fatty acids, is giving you part of the material, not the full repair picture. Look for all 3 together. And there are some other ingredients you want to see in there too. Glycerin, because it pulls water into the skin and holds it there. Panthenol, because it's anti-inflammatory and supports the healing process. Allantoin, for the same reason. And for our skin specifically, those anti-inflammatory ingredients are doing double duty. Because every time inflammation is reduced, the signal to produce more pigment is also reduced.
In the lab, the way I think about a barrier cream is that it needs to work from multiple angles simultaneously.
Yes.
Because the barrier problem is not one-dimensional. You have a lipid deficiency, you have water loss, and you have inflammation happening at the same time. So when I'm building a formula, I'm looking at different types of humectants working together, not just one. Glycerin is the workhorse, right? But I'll also look at something like betaine. It's amino acid derived, incredibly gentle, and it adds a layer of humectancy that sits differently in the formula than glycerin alone. Then there are the newer ingredients coming out of Korean cosmetic formulation tech. Beta-glucan is one. It's a polysaccharide that supports the skin's immune response and helps calm barrier disruption. Madecassoside, which is the active compound in Centella asiatica, is another. Strong anti-inflammatory evidence, well tolerated on compromised skin.
And
Bifida ferment lysate. I want to talk about this one specifically because it keeps coming up, and I think the evidence for it is genuinely interesting. It's a postbiotic derived from bifidobacterium through fermentation, and what it does is upregulate the genes responsible for barrier protein production.
Now, I want to be careful because not all fermented intermediates are doing the same thing. Bifida ferment lysate I'm comfortable with. Galactomyces ferment filtrate is a different conversation.
Absolutely. And I say this as someone who's used galactomyces products and seen good results in terms of brightness and texture. But if you have acne that's not responding to normal treatment, particularly small itchy bumps that cluster around the T-zone and resist everything you throw at them, galactomyces can make that worse.
So Bifida ferment lysate, yes. Galactomyces, proceed with awareness. Those are two very different calls.
And then petrolatum, yes, plain Vaseline. I want to put this on the table because I think there is a significant amount of snobbery around it that is not justified by science. As a night occlusive, petrolatum is one of the most effective barrier sealants available. It does not absorb, it sits on the surface and physically slows down overnight water loss. A thin layer over your barrier moisturizer at night, and I mean thin, just enough to create a seal, is going to do more for overnight repair than most of the expensive face oils being marketed as barrier support. It is non-comedogenic. It has been used in wound care for decades. It is cheap. The only conversation is application. A little on top of everything else, not as a standalone moisturizer.
And on the natural is better question, because I know that is where some people's minds go when they hear petrolatum, it's been villainized because it's not considered quote-unquote natural. Natural does not mean non-irritating. Essential oils are natural. They are also among the most common causes of contact dermatitis in skincare. Plant extracts are natural, and many of them contain allergens that will disrupt a compromised barrier. The appeal of natural formulations is understandable, but when your barrier is broken, the question is not where the ingredient came from. The question is whether it is going to help the barrier or disrupt it further. Some synthetic ingredients like petrolatum, like certain silicons, are genuinely more inert and more predictable than their natural alternatives. That is not anti-natural sentiment, that is formulation science.
That's an important point.
Yeah.
Application matters too. Damp skin, not soaking wet. Pat dry and leave a little moisture. Then apply the moisturizer within about 60 seconds of washing. You are sealing in what is already there. And at night, if your skin is very disrupted, a slightly heavier cream or a thin layer of something occlusive on top, squalane works well for most skin types, slows down overnight water loss significantly. Your skin does most of its structural repair work while you sleep. Give it the conditions to do that.
And the sunscreen, every morning, not optional during barrier repair. UV exposure directly disrupts ceramide synthesis, the process your skin uses to produce the barrier material in the first place. So, if you skip sunscreen while you are trying to repair the barrier, you're working against yourself from the outside every single morning. SPF 30 minimum, broad spectrum, applied over your moisturizer every day. And one more thing on the rebuild. Watch for closed comedones during barrier repair. These are the small flesh-colored bumps under the skin's surface, not inflamed, not painful, but persistent. Heavy emollient formulas, particularly ones with high concentrations of certain fatty acids like oleic acid, can congest pore-prone skin even while they are theoretically repairing the barrier. If you start seeing that kind of congesting during your repair phase, it is not necessarily that the product is wrong. It might be the texture or the fatty acid profile. Try something lighter. Try squalane as your occlusive instead of a heavy cream.
Right. Now the reintroduction timeline. Once your skin is stable, no stinging from water, no tightness after the gentle cleanser, no reactivity to things that used to be fine, when you hit that point consistently for a few days, that is when you start adding back one thing. 2 weeks. Assess. Then the next. The order that makes the most sense for our skin, start with your lowest irritation treatment active, azelaic acid or tranexamic acid, give that 4 weeks. Then add niacinamide if you are targeting pigmentation. It works on a different stage of the production system. Then the retinoid 2 nights a week, never on the same night as an exfoliating acid.
And fragrance stays out if you can manage it. There's nothing fragrance is doing for your skin's function that a fragrance-free version of the same product could not do. It's purely sensory, and for a barrier that is prone to disruption, it's a continuous low-level cost.
If at any point during the reintroduction your skin starts reacting again, steaming from water, tightening after the gentle cleanser, that's the signal. Stop. 2 weeks, back to basics. Then start again. It's not failure. It's just skin telling you it wasn't ready. Listen to it.
One more thing before we close out, because I think there's something worth naming directly. The skincare industry profits from complexity. More products, more steps, more launches, more problems that need solving with new formulations. And the influencer system built on top of that amplifies it constantly, because a 10-step routine with 7 new products makes better content than cleanser, moisturizer, sunscreen. Give it 2 weeks. We're not immune to that. We've all bought the thing. But what we're doing on this show is giving you the information to make decisions based on your actual biology, not what's trending.
And for our biology specifically, for skin with more reactive melanocytes and a structural ceramide baseline that is lower than the most of the research was built around, a simple, stable routine is not settling, it's strategy. All right, if this episode was useful, we've put together a free barrier reset guide at blackskinscience.com. It covers the full ingredient list, what to look for on labels, and the reintroduction schedule laid out clearly. Everything in one place.
And we want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell us, which of those triggers did you recognize in your own routine? The harsh cleanser? The overcrowded actives? The hot water?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Subscribe on YouTube if you're watching there. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Links are in the description. We'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.